Hey, y'all, welcome back to another episode of the Chase Thomas Podcast, where I'm still the aforementioned Chase Thomas coming to you live from Knoxville, Tennessee, Everything School HQ. Hope everybody had a great 4th of July here as we wrap up this holiday week, and hope everyone has a great holiday weekend as well. We've got a fun show for you guys today. I have Go Vols 247's Ben McKee on today's show to talk. We plan to talk majority Memphis Grizzlies, but because we both covered Tennessee, we ended up talking a pretty good amount of, about Tennessee as well. So I think you guys are going to like our conversation on Tennessee baseball and basketball, along with some Memphis Grizzlies content for the Memphis Grizzly Tennessee fans. So fun show for you guys here on a Friday leading into the weekend. Don't forget, folks, you can watch the show. If you're watching us on YouTube, thank you. Go ahead and hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel if you're not already. We're right around 2,000 subs. So if you could help get us there over the weekend, that'd be awesome. So keep chipping away little by little, building up on the video front. So if you want to watch that show, you can do so by just searching us at Chase Thomas Podcast on the YouTube channel. You can also listen to this show. And if you're listening via Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or however you get your podcasts, please make sure you take a second. And if you have not already done so, hit that subscribe button if you like what you hear today and you haven't already done so. But also, if you're a subscriber and you've not already left this show a 5-star rating and write us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or however you are listening, it helps other people find the show and it helps this very show continue to grow. So if you could take care of that today, I would greatly appreciate it. You can keep up with us on the socials at Pod Chase Thomas on Twitter. I'm at Chase_Thomas for the personal account. You can also email the show if you'd like any future Tennessee Vols questions, college football, college basketball, whatever you would like to get in touch with the show. You can do so at chasethomaspodcast@gmail.com. You can also subscribe to TBL Tennessee, where I am a senior editor and write about Tennessee each and every day. So if you're not already reading me over at TBL Tennessee, make sure you go ahead and check us out on that front. Great content on Tennessee all across the board, all over the internet. And of course, you want to learn more about the show and check back in on future episodes and all that good stuff, you can go check out the website, chasethomaspodcast.com. That is all I've got. Let's jump into today's episode. Uncle Darren, let's go.
The Chase Thomas Podcast. My nephew needs me to record. See, I already hate it. I hate it.
All right, welcome back. Chase Thomas Podcast, taping this on a Wednesday night here, a day before July 4th. And we've got a first timer, 4 years in the Knoxville market. I feel like I've talked and gotten to know everybody here locally. Like we got Jack Foster on consistently, Ryan Shumpert on consistently, Ryan Callahan, Brent Hubbs, Grant Ramey, Eric Kane, but no Ben McKee yet. And Ben, I've got to tell you, of Go Vols 247, you're one. It's just me and you, right? The bald Vol writers and podcasters here. There's only 2 of us on the beat, so it was about time after 4 years that the bald writers here in Knoxville, Tennessee, do a podcast together. How are you, sir?
That's right. No, I'm doing well. Appreciate you having me on. I see your work in a lot of different places, and everybody that you listed off. I adore those people and have a ton of respect for each and every single one of them. So I see them joining you all the time, and of course follow you on social media as well. So I see your work through there. So a big fan of yours, and glad that you asked me to come on. Happy to chop it up and formally introduce ourselves over the interwebs, I guess here. But again, appreciate you having me on, and we'll have to lump Mike Wilson on. I don't know if you've had Mike Wilson on from the news.
I have not,
but he has recently joined us, Bald Brethrens. I
there
guess
you go.
in the last 6 months to 8 months. So he got engaged, and I guess felt secure enough, was comfortable in his situation in life to where he could go ahead and just go for it. I haven't gone completely bald. I like to buzz mine down. I usually do like a half on the side and a one on top. So I'm holding on to your life. I'll truly be bald sooner rather than later. But it's a way of life, and I enjoy it, I guess.
Hey, I mean, it's the best thing I tell folks who are going through this. Look, there's nothing worse than being in the middle. Like, you don't want to be balding, you want to pick a side. You either got to have the full head of hair or you shave it down, because you're not fooling anybody, and you'll feel so much better right after you do it. People will get used to it. People are like, whoa, what are you doing? And they'll get used to it. They're like, yeah, that's Chase now. And it's like, my dad's bald. All of his brothers are bald. Like, you also do the math in the family. You're like, what am I up against? It's like when people who don't wear sunscreen, where you're like, oh, you're going to win the battle against the sun. Like, you think you're going one-on-one with the sun and you're not going to get burned, you're going to be all right? No, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing the long-term game against the sun, and I'm not doing the long-term game against my genetics. It's better to just accept it and keep it moving, man. So we're on the same page. But yeah, Mike Wilson, good writer. I like reading him at the Knoxville News Sentinel. So he's maybe next man up here. So that's good. Hey, and we're all married. Maybe that's part of it. You get married or you get in a serious relationship, and there goes the hair. Like, I don't know, Ben. I don't know if there's a connotation there or not. Correlation, excuse me.
Maybe so, maybe not. I feel bad for my significant other, my wife. We've been married now for 5 years as of last week, actually.
Happy late anniversary, man.
Thank you. Appreciate that. But we were together for 8 years, I believe, dated for 8 years. We started dating when she was a sophomore in high school and I was a junior. So we dated through second half of high school and throughout college. I think it ended up being 8 years by the time we got married. And so we've been together for like 13, 14 years now. And I just feel bad for her because she saw me, knew me.
Yeah.
The majority of our relationship, I had a full, nice head of hair. And now she's, for the rest of our relationship and until the day that we die, I mean, she's going to have to look at me as a bald man. Hopefully that's a very long period of time that she has to see me as a bald man. But I just feel bad for her. I tricked her. She thought she was going to get to see luscious hair for the rest of her life, and she gets to see a nice, beautiful bald dome for the rest of her life. And the trick is, like, I don't know if you do the same thing, but me and Mike are on the same wavelengths of, like, every 2 weeks or so, like, we need a cut, we need to buzz it back down. And if you see me in a hat like you do right now, I'm around that 2-week mark of, like, okay, like, it's not terrible, but better to be off wearing a hat. So the trick's trade, I guess.
Oh, so you're at the 2-week mark right now then. That's what you're telling me.
Friday will be the 2-week mark. So, I mean, I'm like on the fringe. I don't hate it. I'm starting to I caught my landing strip. So, I don't necessarily, I mean, when I had a head of hair, I did have the bald spot, but now it's like more. And I used to do the granddaddy cul-de-sac look. Like, I'm not doing that. So,
I've been there.
My wife has started buzzing down my head. So, like, I get free haircuts at home all the time and buzz it down. I like the way it looks when it's buzzed down. It's just I wish it could stay that way instead of growing out, unfortunately.
Well, it's funny you say that because, like, when I can do this, and this is like, there's so many. Hey, we have a lot of Vol listeners here. They're gonna be. I know we have a lot of Vol listeners who are bald. Hey, this is for you. This is the Vol bald segment. And I promise we'll talk some Vols and some Grizzlies here in a second. But the Rich Eisen, where, like, you talk about, like, the thing in the back. For me, I want to get to that point where the worst part is, like, even though I do one on top and I do like a skin fade up on the sides, but the problem is, and I'm right there with you, where if you go, for me, it's actually like a week and a half max, because my hair, which is terrible, like, my hair grows back fast. The remaining strands grow back fast. So I have to be on top of it. Or
same situation. The side grows back super quick.
Yes.
And the middle just does not grow. A week and a half.
It's sad, man. They don't even grow together. That's like one of the worst parts. Is my wife loves to just find like the shortest hair on my head, and we'll just be like, "Oh, there it is, there," and just find it's.
Well,
it's
and
tough,
then, like,
man.
I have, like, we'll call out Grant Ramey. Like, Grant Ramey has a nice, luscious head of hair.
Yeah.
But me, Mike, and Shump like to make fun of his hairline. So, like, he has the head of hair, but doesn't have the hairline. You and me still have a decent hairline, but just nothing behind the hairline. So just thank you. I believe it comes from your mom's father. That
they say that, but I don't know. My great,
You're right. Who knows? But thank you, ancestors. I greatly appreciate you.
Hey, exactly. And also, but hey, we lucked out because we have 2 women in our lives who are okay with it. And hey, for better or for worse, man, that's part of the deal, is you signed up for the baldness. So there you go. Ben, well, there that concludes the bald hour here on the program, but it's good. We have diversity among the Vol writers and podcasters and all that good stuff. Like, you don't want just a bunch of guys with full head of hair. Like, it's not entertaining. I mean, if you look at the Georgia beat, off the top of my head, all full head of hair. like that's a problem. You need some diversity. You need diverse thought here, and I think having different hairlines is a big key in providing that. So, speaking of the Vols here, Ben, one of the things you've written just extremely well over the years, and I love reading your stuff on Vol baseball, Vol basketball, especially. And one of the things that I'm curious about, because I wrote about this a few days ago at TPL Tennessee, and I wanted to kind of get your perspective on it, because it goes back to like Hunter and Zander, where I was going back and forth of who ended up being the better story for Tennessee down the stretch, who was like the better MVP story, because you can make the case for both. I think like Zander obviously had the bigger moments, and you could also say that like, well, part of the thing that you would have to lean Hunter is Hunter's playing every day. Zander is it's only 6 starts, like that's just the nature of pitcher. It's like the whole MVP conversation in Major League Baseball, where it's like, yeah, like for me, the Braves right now, Chris Sale, he's awesome, but he's only pitching a certain amount of, like, it's just, there's only so much value you can get from a Paul Skeens, a Chris Sale, for whoever. But he was so critical in all those spots. But Hunter was critical both defensively. He was batting near 400 down the stretch for Tennessee. Obviously, the slide ended up being the difference. Where did you land on that? Because I think the gut reaction for a lot of fans would be Zander was the best story this season for Tennessee. But I think there's a case that Hunter is actually the best story, for underdog story for Tennessee all year long.
Yeah, I think that's a really compelling question and conversation. Hunter is just a phenomenal story. Wasn't the most highly ranked player in high school or highly recruited guy in high school, and a bit of a football player as well. And I remember when he first got to Tennessee, he was a first baseman, and he was just hitting the ball well. And Blake Burke was there, so they were just kind of trying to find a spot for him. And going back to last season, 2023, when Hunter just finally got inserted into the lineup. I mean, part of the reason that Tony made that change with the outfield, with Jared Dickey in left field, which he had been out there, but really Hunter in center and then Christian Scott in right field, was because Tony felt like they needed an element of toughness added to the mix, and that's exactly what Hunter Ensley provides, as we saw in Omaha, which you should have known that about Hunter prior to Omaha, but it was on full display at the Men's College World Series. So it's a phenomenal story, just not only this season, but where he came from as a player, and just add him to the long list of guys of just terrific developmental stories for the Tennessee baseball program. Obviously, there's a natural skill set there that is exceptional, but he has developed so much since he got to Tennessee, which is a credit to the coaching staff and a credit to Hunter for the amount of work that he has put in to reach the point that he has. But, I mean, it's like Kavar's Tears. I mean, Kavar's didn't have a position when he got to Tennessee. Hunter did not really have a position when he got to Tennessee. And I think that adds to the story. And then in this specific season, he got off to a really, really tough start, really slow start. I believe he was hitting like 238 the first.
I think it got down to like 207 at one point, didn't it? It got low.
It got low.
Yeah.
And it just finally clicked for him, and he finally got back to his old self. And the last month and a half, 2 months, really from that Florida series, which I believe was at the beginning of May, it was vintage Hunter Ensley, big game Hunter Ensley, as people like to call him now. And he just took off and was just absolutely such a valuable piece down the stretch. It's a phenomenal story. It really is. Now, I do say all that to say that I think Zander is still the better story. And I think that he was more – I hate saying it like this because we're splitting hairs obviously here, but I feel like he was more valuable to the championship run than Hunter was, just because of where Tennessee's pitching staff was throughout the season.
Yeah.
Didn't have a ton of depth at times, searching for answers, trying to go about it in an unconventional way. I mean, Frank Anderson told me on the field after they won the Natty that, like, you're not supposed to win a national championship with the way that they piece things together with the pitching staff. You're just not supposed to. And we saw what Kavar's Tears was able to do in center. Not to take away from Hunter, obviously, but Tennessee can survive and win without Hunter Ensley more than it could have without Zander Sechrist, just because offensively and defensively, you had options without Hunter. Whereas with the pitching staff, what do? I mean, we saw it literally come down to the final out, and Tennessee was just – and Aaron Combs, Kirby Connell, I mean, they were just completely out of gas by the time that final game rolled around. I mean, it truly – the pitching staff was –
I mean, Tony threw out Dylan Loy. Like, that was an all-time – I was talking to Ryan about that, where I'm like, that's going to be lost in the ether. But, like, Dylan Loy in that spot was wild in the moment. And
he did it because – in my opinion, he did it because Kirby and Combs were out of gas. And he was trying to avoid going to those guys.
And let me just say, like, I like Dylan Loy and everything. It was just that was a huge spot to put him in. Like, he had never been anything close to that kind of spot where the trust there was crazy.
I completely agree. It was a heck of a move. And the reason that I kind of spoke to it in that manner is because I've seen a lot of, I wouldn't call it criticism, but there were a lot of fans wondering like why Tony did that kind of in the moment and then the next day. And my belief is that like Kirby was gassed out, Combs was gassed out, and he was trying to avoid going to them unless he absolutely had to. And he had to because the pitching staff was just stretched as far as it could be stretched.
Yeah.
So without Zander Sechrist, I hate saying it like this, but without Zander Sechrist, I don't think there's any chance that they win the national championship. Whereas with Hunter Ensley, you slide Kavaris Tears out there in center field, and Kavaris is an excellent center fielder as well. And you have plenty of offense to theoretically make up for the loss of Hunter's bat. So that would be my thinking. I do like your logic and totally agree with your logic about, hey, he's only pitching like once a week. He's only playing once a week. I completely feel you there. But just in terms of where the pitching staff was at this season and where the offense was at, and you had KT available to play defense, I do think that Zander's story is the better one, on top of the storyline of him being a midweek guy his entire career, staying put, being the ultimate team guy, and it finally clicked for him on the mound as well. So that's kind of my thinking behind that question, which is a fascinating one, no doubt.
I like it. Other baseball question I had for you. So among the returning Vol baseball players who will end up coming back next year, and I'm talking about like everyday guys. Let's stay away from the pitching because that's still, I think, pitching. I have not like. There's just a lot of stuff we got to figure out with the pitching staff here in the portal, and also just the freshmen. I think that's something fans got to remember is there's gonna be a lot of people, as you know, coming in this fall that I think we're a long way away, especially because I think it was a surprise that both Dallas and Schaefer ended up in the portal because I think there was a real shot for one of those guys if they came back to be one of the weekend starters next year. So. I think that's a huge TBD, but I think there's a lot of sneaky returning guys here in the 1 through 9 that are in position to be this upcoming year's Dylan Dreiling, Kavaris Tears, those kind of guys. Like, who do you think, as of right now, based on everybody who's coming back, who do you think is most likely to be the MVP, the guy who makes that kind of stardom jump from the returning kind of guys who played a little bit, but then will have like everyday roles next year?
Yeah, another fascinating question. Real quick on Dallas and Schaefer. That one just wasn't working out for both parties, and that was more of a mutual parting of ways, in my opinion. Unfortunate that it didn't work out because of what they were viewed as coming into Tennessee. But just for one reason or another, just did not click for them this year, and probably best for both parties to go their own separate way. But Tennessee certainly, boy, do they have a lot of innings to fill. At the plate, I mean, you got to boil it down to 3 guys, right? Between Reese Chapman, Dalton Bargo, and Cannon Peebles. To me, those are the 3 most likely options.
Where do you think Bargo fits? Because Ryan and I was talking about this week, where I'm like, he has to be an everyday guy, and I'm a big Bargo guy. I don't know where he fits. Is he going first? Do you like? But I guess it depends on where they end up in the portal, who they add in the portal, right?
Yes, I think that's a big that will have a lot to do with it. I don't know either. I don't know the answer to that question. I do not think he's a corner outfielder. I do feel strongly about that. Can he make the play out there? Sure, but I don't think that you would like to put him out there unless you absolutely had to. I think first base would be the most likely option, but even like in practice and in the fall, pregame infield, he was at third base. So I never really saw him.
But Curley might have to be at third.
Curley, I'm fascinated to see how things play out in the infield. I really don't have an answer for you on Bargo because it's most of it is going to depend on who they bring in And I also do feel like third base and catcher are probably his two best defensive positions. But at catcher, it's going to be Cannon Peebles or Stone Lawless.
Could
Probably
Stone play first?
I don't know the answer to that. I would think that he could. But he's not going to pick up where Blake Burke left off defensively. Neither is Bargo, which that is a big question for Tennessee going into the season next year is their first base defense. I mean, how many errors, like fans got on Billy and Simo, rightfully so, for their errors at third base and second base. And it still feels like Blake saved both of them from a million more errors. And you'll have different guys at that position next year. So maybe it's a little bit different, and maybe you don't need that first base defense as much as you once did. But
especially because you're gonna have Ariel at short, who is just going to be ridiculous.
Theoretically, he needs to show some growth with the bat. That has to happen. Defensively, he could have played every game this past season, right? And he was, in my opinion, he was going to be the opening day shortstop until it was his wrist or his thumb that he fractured sliding into second base, had to have surgery, missed like 6 weeks. But he'll be in the mix. But they're in. It's hard to tell because they're in for a couple of transfers that are starting day one. The Andrew Fisher kid from Ole Miss, the third baseman. I think Tennessee is going to be in a really good position there. He would be your third baseman if he elects to come to Tennessee. Gavin Killen, the young man from Louisville, who is considered by some to be the best player in the portal, by Baseball America, that is. He's a middle infielder. He could play second base. He could play shortstop. I mean, if you get those two transfers and you have Dean Curley, like where does Ariel fit in? Where does Bargo fit in at third base? Maybe Bargo has to go try and play first base. So maybe Bargo's your DH for I mean, kind of your permanent DH until he has to go into the field because of injury or other reasons or whatever. It's fascinating because they're going to land some big fish in the portal, and they have several talented young guys coming in or still on the roster. I'm very fascinated to see how that plays out. And as of today, I don't know where Bargo's going to fit in. But I think him or I was going to say Chapman to answer your question. I think Chapman's probably the one that is most likely to be that bona fide breakout superstar once he can find some consistent playing time. Because he is somebody that behind the scenes, the coaches have just raved about his exit velocity and his swing. Like from the moment he stepped foot on campus, like he was breaking exit velocity records on the field and in the batting cages and things along those lines. So I think you got to boil down the question to Bargo, Peebles, or Chapman. And I think I would take Chapman as the one that I would pick to be the breakout guy next year.
I like it. Final Tennessee thing here. It's a basketball one for you because I've been thinking about this a lot this offseason too. And I think they're going to need one of these three to break out in a big way offensively. Because there's I'm a believer in the transfers. I think Igor, Dubar, Chaz, they're going to be good. And Felix Akpara for a different reason. But I think one of the things you've learned, especially in college basketball, is just continuity. It's just so important. And some of these guys are relying on all these transfers to hit and just be really ready to go and kind of that's just asking a lot. It's a lot of turnover for them to all have it going all at the same time and be comfortable in Barnes' system and this, that, and the other. I think they need one of Cam Carr, JP Estrella, or Jordan Gainey to make a big year two jump in the program. And I'm curious from your vantage point, who would you bet on most? Maybe it's just opportunity. Maybe it's just on what you see upside wise. Of those three, who would you bet on making the biggest year two jump and impact for this team?
Cam Carr. Cam Carr,
okay.
Cam Carr, Cam Carr, Cam Carr. And I am somebody who likes Jordan Gainey. I think that they can get more juice, more lemonade out of that lemon than they got a season ago. I don't think his 3-point shooting percentage, which I believe finished under 30%, if I remember correctly. I think he was.
Yeah, he shot 20-something% from three.
Yeah, I think it was 28, if I'm not mistaken. He's better than that. And I think that he is more than just a shooter. I think he's somebody who can really distribute the basketball and be a bit of a playmaker. We saw flashes of it at times, like a play here, a play there. I think he can do it at a pretty consistent level. And I say at a consistent level through the prism of a sixth man. I think Gainey could be an excellent sixth man offensively, defensively, be a spark off the bench like we saw at times last year. So I'm high on Gainey. I'm a big JP Estrella fan. I believe that Tennessee is still really, really high on JP because for somebody that big, his footwork and his hands, especially his hands, are just elite. and the basketball just sticks to his hands when it's thrown to him. And we've seen some post players in the last couple of years where that hasn't always been the case. So I am high on Estrella and I'm high on Jordan Gainey, but Cam Carr, like, people in the program just talk about him differently. Like
Yeah.
they're excited to talk about Gainey, they're excited to talk about Estrella, but there's a different level of excitement when talking about Cam Carr. They are really, really excited about
What do you
him.
think that is? Like, what are they most excited about? Like, why should fans
His
be ready for a
athleticism,
Cam Carr start? What is it?
his athleticism, and
Okay.
he's just kind of a dude. He's not. Maybe at times it looked like he was timid in a game because he was a freshman, but in practice he was not timid whatsoever. Just ferocious, quite frankly. I had one coach tell me, and this was before the season started, and if you would have told me that he would have only played as much as he did prior to the season, I would not have believed you based off of the talk that he was generating. And I will never forget, one of the coaches told me prior to a practice, prior to the season starting, one of the preseason practices, I should simply say, was that he was giving everybody buckets. Everybody. Youngsters on the team, old heads on the team. He was just kind of a walking bucket throughout the summer. And then I think kind of life as a freshman at this level, I think that kind of hit him. But he's a guy that can have a breakout season and be a first round pick a year from now. He is capable of that. Will that
Do you think he
happen?
has like he'll get the minutes? Because that's where it's so tight. Because you have to start Jahmai. Like Jahmai has to start with this group, and I just don't know, because I think Igor Dubar is going to get that 4 spot, and then Barnes is going Akpara or Estrella at the 5. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, maybe it doesn't matter if he doesn't start all year long. If he's in the closing 5 is really what matters. Like, I don't know. That's my biggest question with Cam Carr is, where do the minutes come, and because you're going to this is a Tennessee, like, now, like, I think last year the roles were pretty defined, and the older veterans coming, like, obviously Freddie De Leon, like, that one wasn't as defined and that one didn't work out. But, like, outside of that, it all made sense in terms of the rotation, the minutes, how Barnes divvied it up. They didn't have to deal with crazy injury issues. I don't know. I think this year it's way more murky to me. Do you feel the same?
Yes. I don't know that I would say that it's murk. I think it feels murky because we're not as familiar with the players because there's so many newcomers. But I do think that it will quickly make sense and come together, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think fans, once they see it with their own eyeballs, I think they will quickly realize that, okay, this guy needs to be playing, that guy needs to be playing. With Cam Carr, I do agree with you. I don't think that he will end up being a first-round pick this year because of exactly what you're saying, the minutes thing, and there's some guys in front of him. But on the other hand, I would not be surprised if he came out of nowhere and forced himself firmly in the rotation. I think he's already going to be in the rotation, but, like, forced himself into the lineup at some point, took advantage of maybe somebody else getting off to a slow start or struggling. I don't think it'll happen, but I wouldn't be surprised either. I hope that makes sense because he has just a lot of raw talent, potential that from the moment he stepped foot on campus, the coaching staff has been raving about. But I think people are really going to be surprised with guys like Igor Milicic. I mean, he is the most versatile offensive 4 that Rick Barnes has had, even more so than Grant Williams, because Grant Williams was get on the block, throw it to him, do what he does. Igor can do that. He can shoot. He can attack. He is going to be the best all-around offensive player that Rick has had at the 4. I hope that makes sense because obviously I'm not saying he's Grant Williams and going to be SEC Player of the Year. He is just he can do more offensively than Grant could. Grant dominated at his thing, and Igor can do a lot of different things. I think Felix Akpara playing off as Zakai Ziegler in the pick and roll is going to be able to show some more offensive burst as a lob threat. And defensively, I think they're going to take a jump at the center position as well because he is an elite rim protector. Chaz Lanier has been everything that they thought that he would be these first couple of weeks on campus. He's going to be in the lineup. I think Zakai will start next to him, and then I think it'll be Igor and Felix filling in there in the post at the 4 and the 5.
Yeah, I mean, this is something I wrote about today. It was just because you saw like ESPN had Tennessee at the fourth SEC school here behind A&M, Auburn, and Alabama. You go through post-COVID, it's only Alabama, Auburn, and Tennessee who run this conference in basketball. And really, it's just been Tennessee and Alabama by and large. And I understand the Alabama love. Like, I think they're the most talented roster. I think it's just really hard to dispute that. But I also think it's going to be a lot of mouths to feed. I think there's a lot of recipe for, like, are you really going to be able to keep this many dudes happy? Like, yeah, it's great to have this much talent, but also how is this all going to work together? And I think one of the things that was interesting in the conversation, like in what Jeff Brazell of ESPN wrote, that I don't really agree with, and I think this is a national common thought, which is like Tennessee's offense is going to be worse. And what I wonder from your perspective, Ben, is like, I actually went the other way. I'm looking at this season where if Barnes is able to keep a top 10 defense with who's going to play a majority of these minutes for his team this year, because I think this is going to be a high, like, I actually think the offense is going to be better. Like, this offense was 28th. And I mean, Santi, that just sucked, unfortunately. Like, it was just brutal to watch. And Santi was just so good for this program for so long. Like, that was tough. But, like, he was someone who played a lot of minutes and he fell off. And you saw Josiah. Josiah did so much defensively for Tennessee that they're going to miss a lot this year. But offensively, it was still just very like off and on. It wasn't this consistency that they're like you're talking about with Igor. I think Igor is going to be a consistent offensive guy for Tennessee night in, night out. Like, you just couldn't count on that with Josiah. But I just look at it. So it's just funny because I think people are so caught up in Chaz Lanier versus Dalton Connect and this, that, and the other. I'm like, I think the offense is going to be better. Like, the offense was 28th in adjusted offense last year in KenPom. I think they're like, people forget Barnes had a top 3 offense in 2018, 2019. Like, that wasn't even the best offense Barnes has ever had. And I think this is a deeper team, especially in terms of shooting, than Barnes has had since 2018, 2019. I just think there's this misconception on what Tennessee is going to be. And if Barnes is able to pull a top 10 defense with the guys he's going to play, because I think Chaz, there's going to be struggles there. Like Jemiah and Zakai, we know what that is, and Felix. But like Dubar questions, Igor questions, and guys who are having to do a lot offensively anyway, like Jordan Gainey questions, like Cam Carr. We'll see. But I think if he is able to pull a top 10 defense out of this group and what his rotations are going to be, I think Tennessee is actually going to be a better overall team a team that just went to the Elite Eight. And I don't know if you share that.
No, I do. I agree with you. I think it's going to look differently, but I think in a lot of ways it's going to be more efficient on both sides of the basketball.
Yeah.
Offensively, Chaz Lanier's not putting up Dalton Connect numbers. At least I would be surprised if he did. Chaz is terrific, but and maybe I'm just reluctant to put those type of expectations on him.
Yeah.
Because that to me that's unfair to Chaz himself. But I mean, Chaz is going to be a bucket. I mean, there's no denying that. And I mean, you're going to get a complete season of a healthy Zakai Ziegler post ACL surgery. I talked about Igor, but with Felix, like I really believe, I believe Tennessee really believes that with Felix Akpar, they're going to be able to get more out of him offensively through his athleticism, playing off of Zakai, like I mentioned. Zakai's never had a lob threat like Felix.
Yeah.
Felix has never had a point guard like Zakai. I think they're going to benefit each other in a massive way. Darlinstone Dubar is not somebody that we've mentioned yet. I think he's going to be perfectly fine as well. He can shoot the basketball.
Yeah.
I think the offense is going to be ahead of the defense early on in the year. And that's not because the defense is going to be terrible or anything along those lines. It's just going to be more efficient from top to bottom. And defensively, you are replacing a lot. Like with Josiah, just the simple, like, yeah, he was terrific in terms of just defensive skill, but Josiah's IQ was just through the roof and just cleaned up so many mistakes. And that is something like you've got a lot of new pieces. They've got to learn the defensive system. They've got to catch up to Jemiah and even Gainey and Zakai and some of those guys just from understanding their defensive principles. But because of how athletic they are, I think that's going to give them the chance to be a really, really good defensive team. And I think it's fair to think that they may be top 10, top 15 on that side of the ball. And if you are that and you pair it with a top 10, top 15 offense, which I think they're very capable of, and maybe I'm even underselling them there. I mean, this is a team that can absolutely make another run at a Final Four and potentially be the one that gets over the hump.
So transitioning a little bit to the Grizzlies, you're a Grizzlies fan, Ben. And one of my favorite things that, I mean, I'm a Hawks guy, so this didn't affect me. No, we're all very happy here in Hawks country about drafting. I mean, all the comparisons are tough. Like French Marvin Williams has stuck with me for a little while here with Zachary Reese, but look, it's just part of being an Atlanta OG here. But on Memphis' side, Tennessee fans were up in arms because you take Zach Edey in that spot, and there was rumors about like they let me Donovan Clingan, you trade up for him, like they wanted their Steven Adams replacement, and just there are a lot of Memphis Tennessee Vol fans. There are a lot of them over there, and Zach, you know how Tennessee fans feel about Zach Edey. Ben, what was your immediate reaction to your favorite professional basketball team taking Zach Edey, and do you think it's going to end up being a good fit for the Grizzlies and Ja?
Ooh, my initial reaction was a very, very loud sigh. I was not too thrilled when, just like my dog right now, is not thrilled with the fireworks popping off outside. I wanted Clingan more. I wanted Dalton Connect, honestly. I thought Dalton Connect would it be able to slide right in on the wing. We need shooting on the wing, and I thought he was capable of sliding in and playing well off of Ja, Desmond, and Jaren and some others. I thought that would be a perfect fit for them. But Zach Edey, I don't know. I think Zach Edey is a good basketball player. I just don't know if he's worth the number 10 overall pick. We needed size. We needed rebounding. He checks those boxes, obviously.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's going to be relied upon so much this upcoming season like he was at Purdue. Like he can just kind of be a guy that fits in. And like I was saying with Dalton, he can play off of Jaren Jackson Jr. Ja Morant is, Ja's going to set him up for success offensively. It's just a matter of is he going to be athletic enough? Is he going to be quick enough to make a difference defensively or not be a liability defensively? You don't have to be defensive player of the year. Let Jaren Jackson Jr. do his thing. But can you just not be a liability? Can you defend your position for any stretch bigs? If you're having to defend a stretch big, can you not be a liability in that sense? And that's the big question mark. So I don't at all think it's a bad pick. And I think anybody out there who says that Zach Edey's only good because he's 7'4", 7'5", I think you're telling on yourself that you don't know a whole lot about basketball, quite frankly, because he's not the back-to-back player of the year in college basketball when college basketball is as talented as it's ever been just because he's 7'4", 7'5". That's not happening. That's not working out that way. So I did not love the pick. There were other players I would have rather had, but I don't hate the pick either. And I've, if you couldn't tell, I've kind of talked myself into it just because
that's the great thing about being a fan. Like,
my
you can do it.
Is like, can he, like, is he worth the number 10 overall pick? That would be my biggest criticism.
Yeah, no, we like, I'm going to go back and forth on Reese 7 more times before the start of the season. Like that's just how it's going to go. The other thing too with the Grizzlies that I'm curious about, Ben, is one of the things that the Warriors were able to do, like they get in the lottery, the Wiseman pick didn't end up working out, obviously, but they fall out. And then they get the surprise title run a few years ago. And they bounce back. One of the things that I'm curious about with Memphis, because you were so close, because Ja had all this momentum and everything with the suspension, and obviously you had a whole healthy year of Jaren Jackson, who's an extremely talented player. Like the Tim Duncan comparisons make any Grizzlies fan feel good. Like I'm a believer in Jaren Jackson. He just has to stay on the floor. But you had a full healthy year from Jaren Jackson last year, and then the Ja stuff happens as well. So it feels like you just burned a great Jaren Jackson year, and you just don't know with the injuries year to year what it's going to be like. Do you feel like they do just bounce back, that Desmond Bane, Ja, Jaren are just, they're going to be fine. They're going to be deeper. Gigi kind of was the surprise of the Grizzlies last year and turning into a key rotational piece? Or do you think there are just you have more looming concerns that the Grizzlies are just going to be able to snap their fingers and just jump right back into the top of the West in real contention?
I think they'll be able to jump right back in. I really do. I think Ja Morant, if Ja Morant's healthy and can stay out of trouble, then he's one of the best players in the entire league and is capable of carrying the Grizzlies organization, as we've already seen him do in a couple of different playoff series. So they already have the pieces in place. It's just the injury bug bit them last year. That was the biggest issue. It wasn't, not that the personnel was perfect, and I don't know that the personnel was in place to go win a championship, but the personnel wasn't number 10 overall pick in the draft and lottery pick. I mean, Desmond Bain missed a ton of time. Marcus Smart, somebody I should have mentioned earlier, he missed practically the whole season. Ja practically missed the whole season. Steven Adams was a huge piece, and he missed the whole season before he got traded. So the main issue for the Grizzlies last year was the injury bug, and Ja dealt with the injury bug after needing to get himself in order, and I do think that he did get himself in order. It seems like it's been all good on that front of late. So I'm buying into it. Maybe I'm just being a little too hopeful, a little too optimistic, but I do think that the vast majority of the issues last year was the injury bug, because that roster, I mean, Desmond Bain, Jaren Jackson, Ja, those are all-star caliber players, and so is Marcus Smart. You have other nice role players like Luke Kennard, Gigi Jackson emerged out of nowhere. You're going to have Zach Edey, who's the number 10 overall pick. You'd like to think that he'll be a more than serviceable center even as a rookie. So I do think last year was just simply a lot of bad luck, and I do expect them to bounce back. I don't know that I expect them to go win the championship right away, but I expect them to be truly contending to be in the Western Conference Finals and at least maybe get to the NBA Finals. I think that they have enough to go do that if they can stay healthy. And if Ja Morant can stay on the straight and narrow, which I do believe, again, maybe I'm being a little too optimistic, but I think he learned his lesson, and I do expect him to stay on the straight and narrow.
I like it. Ben, this was great. I appreciate you making the time tonight, man. What can the good folks check out from you and the team over at Go Vols 247 this week?
Yeah, there's a lot. Well, maybe a little slow this week because July 4th is tomorrow, and a lot of fans are going to be out celebrating our freedom the rest of the week. But just this entire month, a lot of Tennessee baseball coverage, picking up where we left off from Tennessee's national championship win and portal updates. The MLB draft is coming up. There's some big decisions for Tennessee there in the high school ranks and with Hunter Ensley. And then Ryan Callahan's got plenty of recruiting coverage as well. And Patrick Brown getting you ready for fall camp, going through like he's ranking the most important players for Tennessee this season. So anything and everything, all Tennessee coverage you need is over at GoVols247.com right now.
Hey, and Ben, do whatever you can to get Manny Ramirez's son in the building. Like whatever we got to do to make it possible that Manny is at Lindsey Nelson Stadium more often than not next spring. We got to do it. Whatever we got to do to keep him from the draft, keep him from signing. Whatever we got to do, Ben. Whatever you can do, because I need that. I need that so much next year.
That'd be fun. Manny and rocking a Power T in Lindsey Nelson Stadium would be a whole lot of fun. I haven't heard a lot of draft buzz around him. Maybe I just have avoided it somehow, but he is not at the list that they are super worried about. So I'll check in there, and maybe we can get back soon, and I'll let you know there. But he's not at the top of the list as far as I understand it at the moment. But we'll see what happens. It'd be cool to have a Ramirez in the building, especially when it's Manny Ramirez's son. He's a baller too. If you follow him on social media, he'll post some highlights every now and then of just absolutely launching a baseball. So it looks like he'd be a really, really fun player to have in Knoxville and watch him play for a couple of years.
There you go. Ben McKee, keep up the great work, sir. And I'll talk to you again very soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate you having me on. Apologies for the dog celebrating July 4th a day early.
There's nothing wrong with the patriotic dog, Ben. We're okay with it. Ben McKee, thank you so much. Talk to you soon.
Nicely done, nephew. The Chase Thomas Podcast. Hell yeah.